Hi there, welcome to a very important video on the Noah Presgrove case, sharing with you never seen before photos for most people in regard to once a person of interest within the case, short term, known as Chris Payette. Join me today as we analyse and break down the conversations, the text messages, photos of police investigating Chris's vehicle in regard to him on the day of Noah's death, in which he felt that he hit something such as a hog, but wanted to double check afterwards. That's the situation you'll probably be familiar with, and we're going in deeper this time round with credit to Michael Facecaz and anyone else in between in regard to these posts coming out now, to get an understanding of the procedures behind it by the hands of police, what was searched and how thoroughly it was checked, and then the discussion of how can it or how should it have applied to other areas or red flags in the case, as well as looking at comments from other people and their reactions to it, where it's a little bit heated and tense, and even Chris speaks out and responds to Michael. I'm going to bring it all back in today with what Alicia, Kaden Press's mom, had to say when calling out Chris in the past, some audio message which I'll share with you once again, and Chris's response to Alicia too, coming full circle, and one more thing which is even more important and a great example of something which may have been dismissed or just briefly acknowledged and then let go. But today is when the catalyst steps up and does a map analysis to a small extent in regard to the mystery of the white van. We talk about vehicles, traffic reports, what was coming, what was going, and at what times. But what about earlier in the morning before Noah Presgrove died, let alone even walked away? What was present? A mysterious white van. So what? It's earlier on. Well, from what Chris said, also when police was present. The real question is, why didn't Kaden Pressy say anything based on his timeline? So you don't want to miss anything today. Be sure to stick around for the full understanding, because it's extremely important to come full circle and to bring up some never talked about or some forgotten things along the way, different perspectives and visuals, and it gives me the chance to look at it raw in the moment, to share with you my thoughts on what I know of and compare, contrast. So if you are here during the live premiere, welcome. Let me know your reactions in the live chat box on the right side of the screen there. And if you have anything else to say, additional questions, answers, it all helps at the end of the day. Be sure to drop a comment under the video. That'll be appreciated, and I can respond back later, and it might create new ideas and who knows what else. I want to know your thoughts today on the mystery of the white van. I want to know your thoughts on Chris's situation previously and where things stand now, and just the overall proactivity by law enforcement police. Was enough done? Could more be done right now and onwards? You let me know. If you are interested in catching up on additional videos of mine, previous coverage, you'll be able to find it all. Anything you've missed out on, top right corner, I symbol up there. Full playlist on the Noah Presgrove case. In addition, if you just simply want to support my channel with my coverage on the case and beyond, just on YouTube, etc., because YouTube's very greedy with the percentage cuts, a more practical alternative way to support the channel is found below in the comment section, pinned message with a PayPal link to me and channel membership. I don't know if this video will be uploaded to TikTok, depending on the video length. Might have to break it down in parts and stages, but I'm so busy at the moment, from the Jay Slater case to psychological videos to other stuff in between. Really full on, really locked in. But this video had to be done today. And what I do want to say is a very quick heads up, in case anyone's wondering. Yesterday, I uploaded 4 videos to my YouTube channel, and only 3 of them performed. The 4th video got 66 views. The one before that in long format got 400. If you wonder why, it's because YouTube has a limit as for notifications. A creator like myself can only post 3 things a day: a video, a shorts clip, a community post, or 1 or 3 of one thing. I could upload 3 short clips and that's it. I could upload 3 long format videos, that's it. If I upload any more beyond that point, subscribers won't be notified because YouTube has a limit as to how much you can post in a day. So I am held back by YouTube, which is very unfortunate. If I could do more videos, I would. Sometimes, not always, because I'll be shooting myself in the foot. Sometimes I just wanted to upload 12 videos in a day because I have that stamina, unlike most, right? Because sometimes you want to break it down bit by bit so everybody sees it. But if YouTube's going to limit it, I also have to limit how many videos I make a day or over the days to ensure maximum growth, maximum awareness. Nothing worse than putting the time and effort in and doing a very important video with important findings only for it to just fade away into dust. It's happened already for me in life, so I've got to be careful. But that's why I'm prioritizing this video today, so as many people can see it. And right now, if you want to share the video to get it out there, if you want to hype the video up on mobile device, down below in the comment section, if you swipe across, that'd be appreciated. Because I think this mystery, this white van, the situation with Chris Payette, all comes together and creates a new dimension and an outlook on the area of the highway, activity levels, people coming and going. I think it's really important. And the fact it's kind of faded away since, not much follow up. Okay, you could put some arguments across and say, well, then maybe it's not that important. But then again, in the other areas in this case, from laptops to devices to cameras to claims of this and that, and golf clubs as well, not being associated directly to Noah's death, not being acknowledged in the autopsy report, yet people still hold on to it and believe there's some mystery behind it, as in, well, where did they go then? Why is there a breakdown in communication? I'm sure the same can apply to the white van of, okay, maybe it was let go, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but where's the communication? Are some things being held back because it might tell more of a story, but it just can't be shown at this time in public? You never know. But before we get any further with that, I just want to tell you the order of how we'll do things today. We're going to jump into Michael's post, the summary which is provided, then look at some arguably never seen before conversations and posts and photos to understand that from Chris's point of view. And then we'll probably take a look at either Alicia's response to Chris at one point, or we'll go to the comment section, and then eventually we'll do the full circle and then the map analysis. So don't go anywhere. Let's lock in right now. You will be able to find this about 1 day ago or so on the Presgrove project by the admin, Michael Facecast. I'll zoom in to make it easier for you to read. About there. The title, Looking in the Wrong Place, a Dead End for Trace Evidence, with an update too. Now, the last time I would have covered this, if given the time, some images or the odd one was unblurred, and it's been corrected since out of respect for people's privacy in terms of Michael making the changes. This post has been updated to make absolutely clear Chris Payette is not a suspect in Noah's death and has been ruled out by law enforcement. Nothing here is meant to point a finger at him in any way. What these screenshots and photos do show is how OSBI and OHP spent significant time and resources examining Chris's truck for trace evidence, checking for blood, skin, hair, or anything that might connect his vehicle to Noah. They photographed and documented the inspection, and Chris himself acknowledged that his vehicle was cleared. And then lower down, the issue here is not Chris. The issue is why so much investigative energy was poured into a lead that went nowhere, whilst other areas with clear red flags were not pursued with the same urgency. Every hour spent chasing the wrong angle is an hour lost from where evidence may actually bear fruit. Imagine if those same resources were applied to contradictions in timelines, missing surveillance footage, or witness statements that keep changing. It's another reminder of how easily focus can shift and how important it is that attention stays on the places where truth is still waiting to be uncovered. So, just for a quick clarification question, if anyone can answer it, might be mentioned by George Choden and a few others. It was said recently, but vaguely, that a vehicle was checked 3 times, and that speaks volume. When people said that, checked 3 times by police, is that Chris's vehicle, or do they mean the side-by-side, the one that Noah rolled over? Which one are people referring to? If you can leave a comment down below, that'd be appreciated. But I do kind of understand what Michael's getting at here. If there's a level of proactivity, there's a level of care and focus on one thing, why can't that apply elsewhere? But how do we know if it has been applied or not? Because with Chris's situation, what's been talked about was more so privately in the background, and it's only come to light now publicly with these posts. So could there be a chance that other things have been checked thoroughly, it's just not been talked about public, similar to Chris's situation once in the past, right? Sometimes the things you don't know or don't hear, the wall of silence can be a sign of things actually happening. You've got to take that into consideration. But there could well be some areas which should have been checked thoroughly or quicker, because some evidence can be lost with time. And I would know about that because the Dylan Rounds case absolutely cemented that concept of missed opportunities, and it was made loud and clear by the victim's family from the actual scene, the Grainshed property, inside, DNA lost, evidence lost, a lot. Now, the case did get solved eventually, but if it was done quicker, more proactivity and care to begin with, that's the difference. It was lacking from the start. In the Noah Presgrove case, not lacking as much. So for when people call out the police, OHP, LE in this case, go back to the Dylan Rounds case and research that. And then you'll realise what incompetence is when it comes to law enforcement in what they should, what they could, but what they don't do. But what does stand out to me by Michael is, imagine if those same resources and effort by police were applied to contradictions in timelines. Now, Michael words that very vaguely, and I'm guessing Michael could be indirectly referring to Jack Newton for that aspect. But let's not forget Kaden Pressey. Shouldn't more have been done in the past? Before the wrongful death lawsuit, of course, because Kaden's not a defendant on it, so he doesn't count. He's deemed as innocent from the looks of it. But in the earlier days, because Kaden was the odd one out, it makes him or his timeline an anomaly. And an anomaly has a level of importance behind it, whether it be right or wrong, whether it be normal or abnormal, likely, right? You'd think you'd check into it more. You think there would have been more proactivity in police getting Kaden's phone, whether Kaden gives it or not, whether Kaden was willing to, which he claims he was. If police went right after Kaden's phone and said, right, we need to check it for the sake of clearing Kaden's name or for the sake of backing up or countering all the other party goes witnesses' statements and timelines. If Kaden's stands out, that's pretty big of a deal. Why can't that be used to compare or contrast with everybody else if he's the odd one out? So yeah, the proactiveness could have been done a bit more there. The hunger, the want, the desire. But look, this is the thing. With what Kaden says compared to what Alicia says, it's a bit all over the place. Alicia says Kaden's phone was handed in to police, analysed and reinforced 515 was correct. Kaden said a few months ago now that his phone was never taken in by police whatsoever. So why would the mother say one thing and the son says something completely different? How can they not be on the same page there? What the hell's going on? What you're looking at now is a private DM conversation, okay? And I think this could be with Tim Daniel. I'm not too sure at this moment. We'll check in the comment section later because I think Tim said, how did you find these? So I'll just zoom in for a second. And I believe this is the particular screenshot which we're going to add on to the map analysis later, so don't go anywhere for that. Chris Payette. Chris is on the left in the light grey box, and then the person on the right in blue. And the person in blue says, "Hey Chris, a woman had shared this story of her husband seeing a white van. Was the vehicle you saw abandoned, a van by any chance?" And Chris says, "Yeah, that vehicle was parked there for days. It was still there when law enforcement arrived." Now the thing is, I don't know the exact time when Chris was driving and when he supposedly hit something, but okay, he's been cleared. But obviously later when Chris, I guess, found out the news of what happened to Noah, linked one with another and thought, oh, maybe I'm the one responsible, and was a responsible adult, did the right thing in reaching out to police. Chris was a good example there, right? And then you got Alicia on the sideline that calls out Chris. What good does that do? Unusual. Now, if Chris is saying that the vehicle was parked there for days, what, days after or days before? It was still there when law enforcement arrived. Parked there for days, meaning that Chris, either days before Noah's death or days after, was driving down that highway to see it still present in some way, to some capacity. In response, okay, so that must be the same one. Maybe nothing, just thought it was really interesting someone else mentioned it. But how significant is it really? It's that post there, screenshot within a screenshot, and you might not be able to read it yourself. It's a bit of a nightmare and a pain in the arse. So I'm just going to try and hold it on screen whilst I read it to you. You might not be able to see it, but I can just about. A person called Nicole says, "My husband went fishing the night Noah was killed. He came through that area around almost 1 a.m, and literally there was a white van parked in an unusual place, just maybe 30 feet from where Noah's body was found. My husband reported it to police when we found out about Noah's death. Nothing ever came from the white van my husband saw. Makes me wonder if the cop he told is hiding information." So I think that's pretty big of a deal. And Chris said he saw it too, and it was there for days. But does that mean it was there for days up until the day of Noah's death, or was it there on the day of Noah's death and then left abandoned there days later? Because it would have had to be moved on at some point if it was an obstruction. Joyce Begar at the time said, "That's really weird." And then in response, Nicole said, "We showed him especially where it was, or specifically where it was, and the time frame when my husband drove through Terrell on our Life 360 app. My husband even said if it was for something where it wasn't parked at, he wouldn't have even noticed it being weird. But then when we hear about the death, we took that information to police." Let me just double check that. Life 360 app, my husband even said if it was for where it wasn't parked, he wouldn't have noticed it. Right, so it wasn't far from where Noah's body was to be found later, but are we saying that the vehicle was parked on the hard shoulder? Likely. It's not going to be parked in the middle of the roadway, is it? Was it more parked on the ditch? Was it parked in a field opposite to where Noah's body was at? I'm just suggesting it, right? Abandoned white van in an unusual place. Why is it considered unusual? Because it's on the side of a highway at that time and it's abandoned, so it's just unusual. 30 feet from where Noah's body was to be found. So that's very interesting. What did other people see then? And Chris, that vehicle was parked there for days. It was still when law enforcement arrived. And then this particular conversation, Chris says, "Especially whilst being drunk, but I do not mind giving people the police report that states there was no blood, skin or hair on my vehicle to prove my point. He was a good kid, as in Noah, and it's a shame he called those people his friends. With that many people there, somebody seen something." So in the past, at least, Chris believed that partygoers or a partygoer, a friend of Noah, a so-called friend, may know what's going on but isn't being truthful. So that's interesting. When you've got a non-victim's family member but a person that knows of Noah Presgrove in a positive light and feels suspicious of party goers, friends of Noah, it does speak volume. Now, I wonder what Chris would say nowadays. Has his mind changed? What's his thoughts on the wrongful death lawsuit? Does he believe the defendant's one of them he is suspicious of? Makes you wonder. And then this one in particular, his most critical one, which we'll get to in a second. This was the final one, which is basically almost impossible to read, but I'll try and read some of it. A person said to Chris, if you say law enforcement cleared your vehicle, then I totally believe you and that's good enough for me. But by any chance in hell, you would consider sharing the police report with me, because I know others would love to finally have that proof that your vehicle was cleared. And again, you don't owe anyone anything, but I'd be happy to make a post saying that I saw that your vehicle was technically or officially looked at and cleared. I'm sorry your name has been dragged through the mud in these groups, and I'll happily defend you and something others that I saw the proof. I really do believe you, and I hope that counts for something. Thanks for considering sharing that information on the police report. I hope this all goes away for you, and we can all stop speculating once and for all. And I wonder if you have any feelings regarding if you think another vehicle hit him. To be honest, the first 911 call always sounded off. But I don't want to accuse that semi-driver of anything, but it was an odd call I felt. So whoever this person was saying that believed that Tyler Hudman at 5:43, his call was a little bit off and unusual. Does that sound? Now, did Chris Payette pass through that area before coming across Tyler Hudman and Tyler Hardy? Chris did respond saying, so it's almost impossible to read, but I'll try and read it to you. I have never had a police report. They have never gave me any documents or whatever. Okay. So it can't be shared because Chris doesn't have the documents. But there is proof that the police did check the vehicle out thoroughly. And we'll get back to that photo in a second. But what I do want to say, first and foremost, how the hell did I manage to read what was on screen? I've surprised myself with my vision. Anyway, what you see there in the background is Chris's vehicle and what he was driving at the time down that highway before Noah's death from the looks of it. But Chris said he hit something and thought it might have been a hog, but then hearing about Noah's news, thought it could have been Noah, so did the right thing. It's been blurred out of respect for the person's privacy, but yesterday or two, it was unblurred. It was like, I think, a pickup truck, right? A black pickup truck. I don't know why it needs to be censored. I can understand the registration plate, but that should be about it. But nevertheless, maybe it's just out of privacy in general. This is just to show us proof of police being involved and active. Kind of on the outside of the case, away from the area, but treating someone that could have been a person of interest or felt responsible, but in the end was cleared. This level of searching, was that applied to the side-by-side rollover? Well, not the actual rollover, but the vehicle itself and any other vehicles in between. I'll zoom in if it's a bit easier for you. This appears to be from Chris's garage, I pronounced that wrong. Chipboard on the ground. There is a paper bag there. Is that a McDonald's, Burger King paper bag? Probably not. It just looks familiar. The only thing that I did myself was I blurred out the woman's face just in case there's any legal problems. That's what I did. I'm guessing that some of that stuff is from the vehicle or from Chris himself and done at the time. On the day of Noah's death, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, down below. But yeah, that's the officials, the authority checking out Chris's vehicle, analysing it. Down there, you got those like evidence tags, so it shows it's official, being done, appropriately. You do, I think, have a mobile phone there, Chris is, I'm guessing. A milk carton, or whatever you call it, a milk bottle, a big one. And some other items too. I said, it didn't link to Noah's death in the end, but it's just an example of what can go on in an investigation and what should be applied elsewhere too, where it might be needed more. But you know what? Whilst Michael says a lot was done and focused on here, the resources, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the focus, as in what we know of now, has been applied. Why can't it apply elsewhere? We don't know for certain, unless there's hard evidence to show that there's a lack of stuff done, but that's on the fence. But what I would say is, I think this situation should get priority, even if in the end it meant nothing, because Chris was the one to report it into police. Chris was the one to say, oh, maybe I'm responsible. Maybe it links to Noah. And if you're going to own up and admit to that, or at least feel responsible, police will follow through with routine, but also take it with a high level of seriousness and, focus in, because you could be responsible. You could be the lead. This could be the resolve to the case. Obviously, they're going to go all in on that lead. I mean, what have other people done in the case as people of interest, suspects, defendants, or future defendants? What did any of them do to get the attention of police to maybe encourage or entice a thorough search on them themselves, on someone that they know of, on a vehicle that they own? Was it done the same way? Because the difference between a person calling in saying, right, I've got my phone records here, you can check from me at the party, and here's the Snapchat footage at the party, there you go, police, compared to someone saying, I'm a stranger, I'm not from the party, I was driving down the highway, I bumped into something, I heard a bang, later found out about Noah found dead on the highway, I'm not too sure if I'm responsible, could you check me out? There's a big difference, isn't there? As in levels of importance and hierarchy. But there might be other higher levels of hierarchy within the case, in other environments with other people, which may or may not have been checked the same as this. But if you can go off this and apply it to other areas, then that's promising, but it's still a bit of a stab in the dark. Now, with that being in mind, and what Chris has said in regard to the police report, I mean, it is interesting though, as you see highlighted in blue, but I do not mind giving people the police report that states there was no blood, skin or hair on my vehicle. It's a good thing that, but how can you give it to show to people as proof when Chris also said here that I have never got a police report? They never gave me any documentation of it. Unless this convo was at a different time compared to this one. If this one was by Chris at the time of that being done, in the early days, before it being truly processed, before the police may have said, you know what, we'll send you the documentation afterwards. We're just conducting our search here for now. You'll receive the papers later in the mail, whatever. And on the same day or a day later, spread apart, Chris then says, yeah, I'm under the impression that I'm going to get the report, under the impression that the documentation is heading my way, but ends up never happening. Hence why he says here, I never got the police report. But down to language and wording, we can't tell when or when not it happened. We can't tell if it's past, present, future tense words and all of that. So it's more guessing once again. But one thing that isn't to guess about is Alicia's attitude. Kaden Press's mom had a few words to say about Chris Payette, kind of in direction to what we're getting at here as for the theme. So join me and listen in to what Alicia previously said about Chris, her thoughts about him, and then his response.
And the whole deal with Chris Payette and them having Chris Payette say that he may have hit a hog, I think that that's something that Avery asked him to say, because Chris Payette is a known liar around town. He's been friends with my oldest son for years. I know Chris Payette personally. He is a liar. He will, if he tells you that the sky is blue, you're going to have to go outside and look, because it's probably black.
After hearing that, you may have been shocked by what Alicia had to say. Would you agree that Alicia is true in what she says? Do you think that Alicia is in a position to be talking? See, one common theme and factor with Alicia compared to Kaden. Kaden's default line and response is, "Y'all be tweaking, y'all be tweaking." Justin Roy's typical response is, "That's vindictive, that's vindictive, that's been twisted more times than Warlight Raph's nipples have ever been twisted before." And then Alicia is, "You're a liar, you're lying, quit lying, you're lying, this is a liar, he's a liar, she's a liar, that's a liar." It's just so repetitive, the language and the buzzwords, right? So, I don't know if you picked up on that, but Chris Payette, it wasn't 2 minutes ago, but it would have been back then when I took the screenshot. This is an older screenshot from an older video of mine. You want to find the video, it's titled "Comments on Never Seen Before Audio Shocking Details by Alicia Revealed." And part of that audio is what you just heard then. So that's why it's all linked back to. And my video and the platform that I'm on provided a space and a voice for Chris to speak on. And this is supposedly the real Chris Payette. And they said at the time, "Alicia Lee or Alicia Pressy, let's not forget about how you called me, saying to watch my back, and how you cared about me, and how people are crazy about 2 to 3 months ago. Karma will come back around to you one day. You might consider changing your ways and turning to God. Lying about me on the internet is childish. I'm quite sure anyone that knows me would disagree with your perception of me, and last I checked, the police said there was no human blood or evidence when I willingly turned my truck over to law enforcement." And we've seen that hard evidence now of the actual photo of it being checked. In addition, you had Chris responding to Rachel Miller, who accused Warlight Raph of being paid off to attack and harm Kaden Pressy, even though there's no proof of that. Chris said to Rachel, "I did my part and went forward that same day as Noah's death. So you're telling me the police didn't detect any human blood on my truck for no reason? You're a goof if you think I could live with myself after killing someone. Brenda says you did the right thing from day one by going to LE. Keep your head up. And Bergow, thank you for coming forwards to LE the same day. Proactivity, getting it over and done with for the sake of clearing their own mind and conscience, but also for helping the case, tying up a loose end, clearing up a dead end. It does make a difference. Sometimes what serves the light is done within the shadows and may not always be acknowledged publicly. But in this case, eventually it was regarding this particular event. But you can see how even in real life, when people are proactive, take some form of action, assist in some way, or at least make the effort to do so, when it comes to online, the communities and the general public, it might not be good enough there in terms of people's words or on behalf of someone could be considered hearsay. But when it's eventually shown as hard evidence, it will shut mouths up. But it's a matter of when does it drop? When is it released? And some people's attitudes are, well, I've done what I need to do in real life. I don't need to owe anyone an answer online. I don't owe anyone anything online. But don't you owe yourself a level of peace? Don't you owe yourself a level of being able to relax without being harassed? Sometimes you got to go a little bit over and above to eliminate the resistance, eliminate the confusion. Just like with what I do on YouTube, there might be a range of things I don't have to do, but I will do to prevent it getting worse, to prevent it escalating. When I come across disease-ridden humans with their peasant-like mentalities, levels of impetuous, degenerative, egocentric behaviour, I will make it known quickly, and I will spread the awareness as soon as possible, so then other viewers and people around me can use their own mind to come to a conclusion, but so they're aware before it impacts them. Whilst I've been screwed over, I'm one of the most screwed over individuals in life in this world for different reasons. Not super serious, but in smaller ways, but I'm definitely screwed over. So if I'm in a position where other people would be, but I can kind of prevent it at times, then I'll try to. So you do a little bit more, just get that awareness out, and it might help them, it might help the case or the community. But if you're in a situation where you've done what you need to do, But as for the online aspect, the general public don't believe that it's happened, don't believe it's true. They demand for photos or videos or some kind of evidence and it's not given, then it's just going to get dragged out and it'll just be an endless cycle. Granted, there will still be times and moments where when you do finally release evidence, it still isn't enough by the general public, and they'll find a way to get an excuse and say, well, yeah, we've got what we wanted, what we asked for from day one, hard evidence, but now we don't believe it because it's where it came from or who's handled it. At times you can never win, but if you can at least minimize the confusion, then there's no harm in doing it. And luckily, thankfully, these screenshots have finally come out now. But what was the response and reactions from other people online? How did they react to it? Did they agree? Did they disagree? Were they shocked or surprised? Let's head on over there right now. And then once that's done, we can hop onto the maps. From when I checked this post a day or two ago, there's only a handful of comments. So by delaying the video being covered, it's led to more now, which is a positive. We get the full or more context. Tim Daniel. And it's in no particular order, this. So what Tim says here may differ to what was said earlier as for initial reactions and responses, okay? Tim said, "Thank you, Michael, for doing the right thing and blacking out the vehicle as requested. I will edit some of my harsh language to reflect that you made the appropriate changes." So previously, when Michael did his post, the photo was not blacked out, so you could see the vehicle, and Tim wasn't too pleased with that. Andrea, well, all this shows is that LE is in fact looking at vehicles. Well, in terms of the hard evidence, it only shows one vehicle, and what Michael is trying to get at, or from his point of view, is, well, if it's being done and conducted there with that particular one of Chris's, can the same be done with the other vehicles? And maybe that's already taken place. But because we don't have the hard evidence and photos of that, it might be hard to believe. That's what the general point is. Tim says to Andrea, exactly. Michael is now making my points for me. This is 1,000% proof that law enforcement is looking at vehicles and have information about another person whose vehicle law enforcement checked. Thankfully, I wasn't stupid enough to share that information with any of Michael's people, but trust me, that law enforcement looked at 4 vehicles that I know of. Why? Because they are looking at vehicles. Things they didn't go searching for are golf clubs and or the ends of rifles. So they believe that a vehicle was involved in Noah's death, not directly as a hit and run, but other means and formats of vehicular-based deaths, then they're going to have it on the table to look into. And for as long as there are vehicles about and present, they need to be looked at. Now, 4 vehicles have been checked. Does that include Chris's? So there's 3 other vehicles, or do you mean 4 other ones besides Chris? And what vehicles would they be? 1, the side-by-side vehicle, the one that Noah rolled over. And who else? Jack's Ford Ranger. What about Kaden Pressy's red Cherokee? Caden's vehicle. Supposedly Brylan Sweat had a vehicle as well there. Was that checked? That'd be interesting to know. You let me know your thoughts if it can be explained or given a bit more of. But yeah, we're supposed to trust and believe that 4 other vehicles or 3 other vehicles have been searched, checked. That's a good thing if so. But, you know, it's understandable if not everybody believes it because it's just words, or it could be considered hearsay, but it could well be the truth. As for me, I would hope to believe that it is true. There shouldn't be any lies. There'd be no need to lie, right? But I'm just basing it off when you got Chris's point of view, what he said, pairing it with the actual proof of it taking place. That's a big positive and a plus. It goes from hearsay to evidence. If that can be applied elsewhere down the line, that could help. It could, to be honest. There we go. Tim Daniel said, in capital letters, so we'll have to make that clear. How did you get my private conversation with Chris? It shows that LE is looking at vehicles. It literally shows that Law enforcement is spraying luminol on vehicle because they think Noah was hit with a vehicle. I have more on this, and I guess I will have to make my own post on another page because you refuse to let anyone post on your BS page. Michael, this is very wrong to share things about Chris' permission, and I imagine you ruined any trust or chance of him to share more information about that night. I sent it to 2 people. Who were those 2 people Tim shared it with? And were one of those 2 people responsible for sharing it to Michael Faye's Kaz? Because this is what seems to happen with time, and maybe sometimes lessons aren't always learned. It depends when it's happened, right? If you didn't know anything beforehand, you wouldn't expect much to come about. But, you know, if things are going to be shared and then you get stabbed in the back, when it's repeated over and over again, it becomes a problem. Or by different people. You know, like when it came to another channel out there covering the case and people said, I'm going to try and message the guy on Facebook. I'm going to try and get some information out. I'm going to try and spread the word across. And then they say, oh, they've used my screenshots. They've used my text messages. They've used my DMs. Wah, public. And it's like, well, did you not see the line and list of other people that were going through the same thing? Why did you repeat it? Why, even if it's your first time, if you've clearly seen other people get screwed over, why are you doing it yourself? Right? I think the trust elements might be naive people, naivety about when it comes to sharing stuff and opening up with the wrong people or the wrong crowds, and it can backfire to some extent, or it appears to be. But what's that? LE is looking at vehicles. It shows that the LE is spraying luminol on a vehicle because I didn't notice that myself, but maybe I wasn't looking at the right thing. Or maybe it was visible on the vehicle, but with it being blurred out, you wouldn't be able to see. I didn't pay much attention, but I'm sure some people did. Now, okay, there was about 60 responses, so we'll try and get through it. Tim says, sorry, Chris. I see you like my comment. I hope you don't mind Michael sharing this, but yes, Chris had his vehicle cleared. Very gracious to share his proof that Ellie cleared his vehicle. He is not a suspect and was kind enough to share the proof with me. But if it wasn't for Michael Faye's Kaz, whether you want to call it leaking it or not, if it wasn't for Michael Faye's Kaz, would we know about it in the moment? Or would it be a long delay of silence? I know it comes down to what you can and can't do. If they say you can't share it public, you've got to respect the wishes. But if there's ever a time where you can share it and there's no issues whatsoever, if you find a case important and awareness, then it's worth doing. Just like with me, whenever something can be posted public, I will do it as soon as possible. If I have the truth, if I have the real knowledge and I'm able to, I will share it public. Because what good does it do in holding it back, gatekeeping, and just using my weak words of, well, I've seen it, I know it's true, I believe in it, because I've witnessed it. Well, good for you, Raf. What about everybody else? Don't they have a right? And if it's public, or it can be made public, then yeah. Because whether you believe the general public are entitled or not, aren't you entitled yourself in a bit of peace of mind for yourself or on behalf of someone to clear the mess, to clear the tension if you're able? Becca says to Tim, Daniel, how the fuck are you blaming me, Tim? Like, are you serious right now? Well, I don't remember Becca's name coming up in any of the comments unless I've missed something. Tim says, I'm not blaming you at all. I'm blaming Michael. I shared this post with 2 people. One was Joyce Begow. Oh, was it now? So I figured she shared it with you, but it is not important who passed it along. I'm happy that people can see that Ellie is looking at vehicles, but mad he didn't get permission from Chris. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, if there are some people here and there that do want things cleared up within the appropriate ways and reasons, yes, you can reach out to people that you trust, and that's a good thing. And I guess Chris trusted Tim, Tim trusted Chris, but in between there was a bit of a mess with outsiders or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, If the original person wants awareness or wants something clarifying or clearing up on a mass scale where there's a platform where more people and beyond can see it, so the truth is set free from YouTube to TikTok and onwards, right? Isn't it common sense to reach out to someone that has the reach in the first place? Based on that scenario. Just like how people from the dark side shared the never seen before Snapchats to me because people knew that I would execute it exactly just right and with more perspective than they could imagine themselves. As a perfect example, and it's a positive, there was a time where I think Robbie Taylor wanted something to be covered or acknowledged, and it might have been to do with Alicia and her dark side. Can't remember completely, right? And Robbie gave their thoughts as in what should be covered or how it could be covered. And I said, okay, I did that. But I also gave my full perspective. And I remember Robbie saying, wow. I don't think I could have put it any better. That's actually surprised me. That's actually even better than what I imagined or what I anticipated. That full balanced and perspective. So if it can be demonstrated, which it has been, it can be done again and again with the reach and the depth and the clarity. If you reach out to people privately and you want the awareness, is it going to go the same way? It depends, right? It might be originally in the right hands, but then where does it go from there? It's interesting. So Tim shared it to 2 people, one of which was supposedly Joyce Bagau, and then another individual. And Tim just assumed that Joyce shared it with Becca. So did Becca see it? Maybe not. So let's just continue on reading. It's not important who passed it along. I am happy that people can see that LE is looking at vehicles, but mad he didn't get the permission, of course. I am absolutely not blaming you at all. Michael made the post, and even after Chris himself asked him to take down the images showing his vehicle, he refused. I should not have mentioned your name as you didn't make the post. I removed your name from my comment. Well, there we go. That explains that. Becca, I would never have seen this if people didn't send it to me. I have no idea who you sent it to, but it wasn't me. Ooh, so Joyce Bagau received it and some other mystery person. You know what I'd like to know? What does it lead to? And this is just a genuine question. When it comes to sharing it to specific people, are people sharing it to specific people because those people have the correct resources to handle and operate that material, the sensitivity of it? Or is it just shared with friends, shared with close ones, those that people can trust? Because if it's a trust factor or element, it could really bring that into questioning on a much deeper level, further afar. Very interesting. Miranda to Tim. Did Chris give you permission to share this conversation with not 1 person but 2 people? And maybe it's just me, but it seems to have spread through multiple hands since you shared it first. And Tim's first response is, it doesn't matter. Well, to some extent it does matter, because not as a direct comparison, but what about the Alicia Lee situation in which Kaden Pressey had that private police interview recording 2024. It was supposed to be put in a Dropbox with the attorney, and Alicia, besides sharing it to the attorney, decided to share it to members of the general public privately who she trusted in, and then it backfired, and 1 or 2 of those members that received it shared it on elsewhere, and it spread like wildfire, right? When you share stuff, you've got to be careful who you share it with, just in case it does expand. You yourself may be doing it for good reason, but the people receiving it, how did they go about it? And of course, you can't complain too much, or someone like me shouldn't be too critical, as in there might have been times, right, where videos I have covered within reason, and it was done all fine, but still, certain contents may have come from other people over time. That food chain. So can't complain about it too much, But in terms of the comparison with Alicia and the Dropbox, you can see how when it's in the hands of some people or how it's shared, it does matter to an extent. But anyway, Tim says Chris asked right here in this post for Michael to not post photos of his vehicle. As you can see, that request was ignored. Was it? The information isn't the problem. It shows that LE was looking at vehicles. The issue is that lunatics have identified other people's vehicles in this case. And one of them key words into the side of their car. Oh, in recent time, some woman had her car keyed by someone else, a part of the community. Crazy, isn't it? Goes to show why sometimes it's best covering true crime cases from a different country. He can leave up the information, just not cool to show identifying images of someone's property. Chris has shared all this information in the groups himself, from his words, but not with actual hard evidence, I guess. So some could have complained and said it's hearsay at the time. Are you seriously defending ignoring Chris's request to simply remove the image? He could black out the vehicle and leave the officers in it if he wants to show Ellie did investigate. Well, the thing is, this is an old comment by Tim, hence why Tim's first comment was, I need to make some adjustments, and thank you, Michael, for blowing it out. But you know what? This is the next thing. If it can't be shared in the first place because it might reveal something, negotiate. That's exactly what I did with the Snapchat post. You remember that? What can be done, what can't be done. I want to share it. I want the general public to know what's the best way around it. Oh, this needs to be blurred out. Oh, okay then, build the bridges, do what's requested, give and take, and then share public. And people appreciated it. And others did not whinge, whine, toys out the pram as usual. A follow-up to same event, different angle, roughly the same time. This time round, I said to them, is it possible to make it a little bit more transparent, as in the obstruction, so you can still identify the faces or the eyes? And they said, absolutely, that's fine. So you got the best of both worlds. Negotiating is possible. If something like this could have been posted some time ago as actual hard evidence, and all you had to do was blur out the vehicle and it would be A-OK, then why wasn't it done much earlier on as a means of protecting oneself or protecting the case, easing the tension, easing the confusion, easing the accusations, and so on? If there's a way to limit it, then why not do it sooner? If you've got medicine beside you and you've got acid and it's burning down deep in your chest, do you just stand there and look at the medicine? Or do you attempt to open the lid, pour a little out, and then decide to swallow it? I think, well, when I did it, I was using a teaspoon instead of a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon, but, all under control. Could it have been done sooner than later? It's good that it's come out now. And there's still more we need to add on with the whole map analysis in the white van. We're not even finished yet. We're only halfway through. But, interesting. But, in terms of Miranda referring to the permission aspect as who did Tim share it with, Joyce Begout and somebody else. One of two people must have shared it with Michael Facecast, and then Michael decided to post it public. You can see how it passes through, but you can see how it benefits the general public in learning. But you could see how Chris may feel betrayed in the process. If everybody could all connect together in that small little triangular format and say what can be posted, what can be negotiated, what should be blurred out and what shouldn't, to get the best of both worlds, you'd build the bridges, you'd build the trust, and you would reduce and ease the tension from the community. There's a way around it. I've demonstrated it. If other people can, it might help them too. But I'm not being negative towards Tim Daniel, but I do have to be balanced and not biased. When Miranda asked the question as to who did you share it with, and was Chris okay with that, when Tim says it doesn't matter, that's a bit defensive, bit of deflection there. Chris asked right here in this post for Michael to not post photos of his vehicle once it was already posted. Right. So Chris basically didn't want it to be made public. But was Chris okay with Tim simply sharing it with other people in confidence, in private? Yes or no? And because Tim says it doesn't matter, in fairness, it's not the best response to give when it comes to first impressions on answering a question, because it'll just give other people, Tim, ammunition to say, oh, you're deflecting, oh, you're not being clear with your answer, and then they'll interpret it in a negative way and it'll expand and get worse. And I'm sure Tim says, well, I don't really care, but as a means of keeping it under control, you got to respond back in a very specific way at times. Let's see how Miranda responded to it, though. Tim Daniel, typical Tim, running circles around a question with lengthy paragraphs. Right, so it's as I predicted. Quoting you here, shut the F up and stop deflecting. Wait, is this the one that was edited out or was it one further up? I can't remember. Quoting you here. Stop deflecting. If you had never ran and shared this conversation with those two people, it wouldn't be available for anyone to publish to the public. Well, that's how it appears to be, yes. So before you start pointing fingers, don't forget this conversation left your inbox first. Finally, yes, Chris Payette has every right to feel how he feels. Stop putting words in my mouth. Right, not to sound one-sided, but Miranda has a point to an extent, as in the same way when it came to Alicia getting triggered. It might be a bit of a strong example, that. But when Alicia got triggered, as in, how dare that other YouTube channel, not me, but another YouTube channel out there, post a full interview in full length and keep it online. How dare they do this? How dare they share that? How dare they? How could anyone possibly do that and share it? Oh, I was the one that shared it with a couple of friends of mine. That's what Alicia did. Alicia shot herself in the foot. Alicia made it harder for Kaden because of her sharing it outwards. You might share it yourself with the right intentions, having the trust within others, but from there on then it can be a slippery slope. So, not to sound negative, but if you're the catalyst or the enabler, as in how you received and how you handled it, you did it appropriately and above board and with respect. But then where you share it from there on then, the ball is in other people's courts as to how they act on that. And it can go wrong in some way. I tend to be cautious most of the time. A person could send me something, like in the past, and then I'm like, let me reach out to the original person and see if they're okay with it. And they said, wow, thank you for doing so. That's much appreciated. You didn't have to, but I appreciate it. That's what I mean. If that triangular format could be established, it would be a win. And it just doesn't seem to come through. Oh no, we've got Jennifer Sakuda, also known as Excellent Spite on Reddit, the one that had a go at me and banned me from the Reddit page or so. Jennifer says, Tim Daniel, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you shared it without permission, but it matters that Michael shared it to clear the information to this page. What a contradiction. Joyce Bagau says, I didn't share with Michael at all. Fair enough. So who is that other person then? Who is that mystery second person that shared it with Michael? Does anyone know? Right. So we've got this one. This might be a bit of an older comment before Michael edited the photo, but we'll read it anyway. Chris Payette, the Chris says, some of you bummy motherfuckers, please get a life and quit pretending to be cops. Hate to break it to everybody, but that's a £12,000 truck with a cattle bumper. If that truck hit Noah, he would be unrecognisable, and there would be considerable amounts of blood from front to back. If you think you're so good at solving crimes, go be a cop, not some brainwashed moron who isn't even from this town blaming someone he doesn't even personally know. Cops do not like me as it is. Why? What have you done? I'm 110% sure I would have been in jail by now if I was as guilty as you think I am. And riddle me this. If I'm so guilty, then why did I willingly meet with police twice and then willingly hand my truck over? Make it make sense. Grow up and quit posting someone's personal vehicle all over the internet. Can I just say one thing? When it comes to a person's vehicle, if the license plate is, censored and there's no addresses mentioned at all, and you're just looking at a vehicle, how do you identify it? Is it more so if you're in the general community, if you're a local and you see that vehicle, just visually you are familiar with it, and then the next time you're walking by a neighbourhood, you see it on a driveway and think, oh, well, that must be the one. Let's go after Chris. Is that how it comes about when it comes to a small community, tight-knit, everybody knows one another, or just people are very familiar with vehicles and then seeing it online thinks it's the same exact one? If it's a license plate on show, I can understand being tracked down, traced and harassed. But if the sensitive details are hidden, can it be traced or tracked the same way? Do you know, like if you go on Google Earth, Google Images, Street View, you look at a house, it's all publicly viewable, but maybe certain details or addresses are maybe hidden or restricted. But is that image considered as bad and it needs to be blurred or censored? I wonder. Let's just see the responses whilst we're here. Oh my goodness, there's a lot going on. Michael to Chris, I don't think you had anything to do with Noah's death. But whilst that's understandable, it's to do with respecting Chris's privacy. And sometimes, if you directly reach out to the original person that may originally not want it sharing, if you're honest and upfront and say what your intentions are, they might be a bit more likely to be lenient and allow you to post it or in some way. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't direct. Michael to Chris, but I do think it's important to note that you have been effectively ruled out as a suspect, even though people keep pushing it, and more or less trying to showcase the sloppy handling of this case and continuous looking in the wrong direction by law enforcement. Well, if that's the case, what Michael should have done was directly reach out to Chris. Even if Michael did receive the screenshots from a mystery person in which Tim sent it to in the first place, Michael should have then gone back to Chris and said, hey, someone has shared with me those screenshots of yours. Can I use it, yes or no? For that full circle, or whatever bloody shape you're using. Chris to Michael, do you know how crazy people are? I don't care what gets posted about me, but do not post my personal vehicle in a group full of thousands of people who want the killer to pay. Because I understand that if it's misinterpreted and people think that Chris was the killer, if they misinterpreted it that way, then they may try and kill Chris. I'll clarify the post so people don't assume you're a suspect. I do completely agree. If that vehicle had hit Noah, it would have been a completely different picture on the roadside. There would be blood everywhere, pieces of him everywhere. This was not a hit and run and your vehicle had nothing to do with his death. Then we got Tim. Sorry, Chris, I did not give Michael permission to share our conversation. Well, from the looks of it, Tim never shared it to Michael directly. Tim shared it to Joyce Bergow and a mystery person, and the mystery person decided to share it with Michael from the looks of it. Tim says he should care more about real life consequences for anyone involved in the case. You are awesome for doing the right thing, and so on and so on. I will make a post in another group later saying as much. Right, well, we'll see about that. I've not checked myself yet. It might be different to the time when I do this video. Tim says to Michael, take down the images of his vehicle. He literally just asked you to edit to say images were blacked out appropriately. It was resolved to some extent. Denise Arnolds, it doesn't matter to him who he doxes. Thank you for your cooperation and I really do pray you're not in any danger. And then Denise to Michael, it doesn't really matter at this time, Michael. You've already got his personal vehicle out there along with his name and he's already getting crazy people contacting him. As soon as a person's name is pulled out of the hat, then they're already in danger and accused. It would have been nice if you have asked his permission prior to making the post who sent you all those because they were sent in a personal message to somebody else. And who is that of somebody else? You realise the damage is already done, correct? People that read your post originally may come back to the post but may not reread any corrections that you made. You list the people that have been ruled out, just wondering. Michael says, no, let me just say this. When the police look at your vehicle not once, not twice, but 3 times and still find nothing when Noah's injuries do not align with a vehicle hit and run, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet he's not involved nor his vehicle. Well, that's basically what people were saying on my channel chat recently. None of Noah's injuries align with a vehicular strike. None of his injuries had long bone fractures or any bilateral injuries indicative of being struck. The question is, why did LE spend so much time and resources on this particular issue when there's other clear red flags that have been overlooked or ignored completely? There's witnesses that have not been interviewed when there's contradictory statements by suspects. But what about the non-suspects like Kaden Pressey, who's very contradictory too? Let's not forget that. Why have they not been re-interviewed or been requested to be interviewed and declined due to legal counsel? And then what's this? Why do you lie so much? Noah absolutely had bilateral injuries and tons of them. You should familiarise yourself with his autopsy so you understand that his bilateral injuries are the kinds that can only be caused by a vehicle. Here, I'm happy to do the research for you. Caused by a vehicle but not by a hit and run but other means of a vehicular-based death injuries. Is this the actual autopsy? Yeah, it's part of the autopsy to with Noah Presgrove. Internal examination revealed contusions and lacerations of the right and left lungs. Right hemothorax of at least 700 millilitres. There was left hemothorax of at least 500. The hemopericardium of at least 150. There was hemoperitoneum of 200. There were bilateral upper posterior rib fractures. Post-mortem radiology revealed bilateral scapular fractures, bilateral rib fractures involving the right 1 to 5 and 8 ribs. And then spinal posterior shaft and left 2 to 5 ribs at the spinal end. And there were bilateral pneumothoraces. Okay. Can I get the idea? Oh God. More screenshots, more fancy words. Lacerations of the right and left lungs, bilateral hemothoraces, bilateral scapular fractures, bilateral posterior rib fractures as follows, right 1 to 5 and 8 ribs. Yeah, it's like what we basically read before. Denise, do we know what they found after 2 and 3 times of looking at the vehicle? The answer is no. We do not know what they have or have not found. I'm sure they're going to save all that information on all of the vehicles for the civil case. And other than Kaden Pressey's interviews, nobody else has many contradictory statements and accounts as Kaden does, and his mother. That's true. But then again, Kaden has spoken out more, so has Alicia. There's been more room for error, more room for criticism. We don't know in terms of the private interviews and some of the public statements by the other partygoers how that compares. We can't compare when it's not public or available. Then it says, how many times do you think Jack Newton and the girls have been interviewed? If you're saying 1, then you are highly mistaken. And how do you know that they have not been with their attorneys when they did their other interviews? You do realise none of them had legal counsel for over a month after the incident, correct? Suspects, have you got a list of those as well? I've never seen anything released from LE that they have a list of suspects, let alone suspects that have been cleared. And as far as the autopsy goes, I have a screenshot showing that there are plenty of bilateral injuries, which we've kind of like what we've seen already. Michael says, never said he didn't have bilateral injuries at all, just none that aligned with a vehicle strike, as he's missing all of the key indicators for that. This is one of the reasons his death was considered suspicious, and a cause of death was multiple blunt force trauma and not vehicular. Denise, where does it say it was considered suspicious? Undetermined. I've never seen it listed as suspicious. I'll be honest with you, in terms of the term suspicious, I'm wondering if it was more worded that way on official news articles. I believe in the official autopsy report it was known as unknown or undetermined. Undetermined, unknown, uncertain. To say suspicious leans more towards possible foul play. And I think it's the news articles that use the term suspicious. Don't think the autopsy did. Jen Zakuda, did Ellie ask for your truck or did you willingly just bring it in, Chris? And then what's this one? Terrell, Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation confirmed to KSWO7 News that the body found along Highway 81 north of Terrell, September 4, 2023, was that of 19-year-old Noah Presgrove. OSBI said they're investigating the Comanche teen's death as suspicious at the time. Well, it's good that Ashley has provided that, and I'll zoom in just to make it a bit clearer for you. Oh, God, it doesn't even fit on the screen. That's great. I don't know what page or where this is from. Is it Wikipedia? Is it Google search? But yeah, I'm familiar with it. But that's the thing. Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation and that the OSBI are investigating it before the autopsy was publicly released as a suspicious death. Then I guess in between autopsy done, results found out, made public, coming to the conclusion that it's undetermined, unknown of, but not suspicious anymore. That's how I interpret it. Let's just double check. Michael says, where does it say about suspicious? The reason his death was... This is one of the reasons his death was considered suspicious. But the autopsy didn't consider it suspicious. The police considered the death originally as suspicious due to the circumstances. And then I guess the autopsy took away that suspicious factor and clarified it. Suspicious, did you not know that? You seem to know everything. But that's the thing. In the early days, the OSBI, separate to the ME, medical examiner, who's got more knowledge on, I guess, the ins and outs of the body and the damage. At first glance, face value, it might be understandable why OSBI would treat it as suspicious due to the circumstances. But then an internal look, a deeper look at it, the ME separate and the autopsy separate, comes to the conclusion it's unknown of, undetermined, but it's not suspicious. Different people, different opinions and outlooks. Maybe one's an opinion, the other one's more, to some extent, a fact because of the autopsy. Anyway, Dana, don't you think that if he wasn't cleared, he would have been in custody by now? His truck has nothing to do with it. I don't think his truck has anything to do with it, but it was posted to highlight the attention on one thing more so than others. How about just delete this sheet so another person isn't involved in your witch hunts? I've been told by June Rose that they don't clear people. Right. Oh, Chris, once again, y'all's still stuck on my truck. Get a life and quit posting my personal vehicle all over the internet. I've already had enough weirdos contact me. That's understandable. The thing is, people will go on about it till the cows come home, but if evidence can be provided along the way to squash it all and the noise, it can help. But it depends if the original person wants all that trouble, and people just want to keep a low profile, I guess. But then again, if people want to keep a low profile, then they shouldn't be talking about it so loudly online. If you're going to talk about it so loudly online, you should expect the resistance that comes with it. And then if you want it to all stop, then you've got the choice. You have the option to release things if you can. So sometimes some people set themselves up to resistance and attacks. I mean, I can't complain too much. When I'm a content creator, I am going to be a target. I put myself out there. There'll be good moments and then there'll be a lot of bad moments. It is why it is. If I didn't like it, then I shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But that's just one example. Tim to Chris. Chris is not a suspect. He's a good person who did the right thing. Pissing me off so much, Michael. What is wrong with you? Do you have a conscience? Do you think about any other than yourself? Stop doxing people. You have a crazed following of lunatics, including Melissa LeQuay, who drove her car into someone's backyard, tried to assault someone and ended up in jail for weeks, or mum screaming about Noah and stuff she heard in the army group. Look it up. But the thing is, it was said that Melissa LeQuay was never in the army page, but maybe she heard about it in other ways. But Melissa LeQuay temporarily was in the case discussion page and also a part of the Justice Family Run page, just for clarity. And I only say that because when I read other people's Reddit comments, Justin and some other plonkers decided to misunderstand what I was saying and accuse me of creating the misinformation and attacking the army page when I never did. Pettiness, throwing toys out the pram and not thinking, obtuse tunnel vision mindset overly emotional, same old at the time, but I cleared it up very quickly, pulled the receipts up, and it was all under control. Anyway, with Melissa LeQuay, back at the homeowner's house, husband, wife, Melissa LeQuay tried running both over in a car, caused damage to the land, the grass, turning it up, and then drove down the highway trying to run people off the road, and eventually caught up by police, whether it be parked up or a neighbourhood. And then she grabbed the officer's testicles. It wasn't quite descriptive as to how long she held on to them for or how hard, but enough for it to be considered assault of an officer, and maybe kicking as well. Not a good look. For someone that's an advocate for Noah Presgrove, not a good look. And I know we went through the phase of advocates for avocados. I think avocados would have more control and self-control than Melissa LeQuay would ever. But yeah, it goes on with, originally with what Tim was saying. People are nuts and go real life because of this kind of BS. People do real life crazy shit. Because of your reckless post accusing innocent people, you'll be held responsible if you're an admin of a hate group that promotes doxing of innocent people. This stops right now, Michael. Go ahead and keep posting harassing, libelous, defamatory things about any of these people who all cooperated with law enforcement. They all cooperated with law enforcement. Yet you stir your weirdo group up into a frenzy, pitchfork-wielding lunatics. I'm surprised golf clubs weren't included. 2 days ago, a woman under a fake profile said Jack needs to be dragged into the woods and beaten, and another woman threatened the death of Carter and Jack's unborn baby. She said that their child would be dead after a year. Those are the sickos that follow you wishing the death of an unborn baby. Stop harassing people who are actually Noah's friends. I will always stand up against cyberbullying of young people. Let's not forget that time, Tim Daniel, when it comes to cyberbullying, you had, what was it, Divine, Shirai, the Australian card reader, Shirai, that decided to accuse Walleye Graf of cyberbullying people. Bollocks. No evidence of that. I said, I don't forget. Moving on. Judy. I still also want to know about the golf clubs and the guns the woman took home, as in Renee Milan, but the golf clubs were not taken home. Renee Milan supposedly took the guns home. With her, that belonged to one of the boys or some of the boys. Okay, so there's a bit of confusion here. Let's just see the responses first. Come on. Oh my God, how many responses are they? Sheila. Same. What happened? Do all those items I thought maybe have been dumped in a pond? Wow. Laura, a pond or the Red River? Someone said it has quicksand in certain areas. Is that Sam? A woman I don't remember who she was to the kids, but was a relative of one of the boys and said she took firearms. That's Renee Milan. But there was no mention of taking golf clubs. Sheila, I think the same. Devastating. Lisa, I remember seeing it posted that Renee took the guns from the house whilst Kaden took the beer, supposedly. She was also at the scene that morning before going to the house. Most part of it, yeah. And you read it, right? Terry, I don't post because too much BS in mucking things up. I assure you when the arrest starts, at least 20 will be charged. Really? So, what? Removal of evidence, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to cover up a crime, moving of a corpse, what? Desecration? Witness tapering, law enforcement and medical examiner, conspiracy to cover up a crime, and a handful of other serious crimes. I won't say who because they know who they are. I mean, it's going to such great lengths for a 19-year-old white male. Why would they go out of their way to do such things like that? Just seems quite full on. I mean, if you're really covering it up, you'd think it would be because it's an important person that may have been killed. Noah Presgrove was a popular, good individual, but maybe not important to the extent of an authoritative figure or a celebrity, if you get what I'm saying, right? Lisa, a few of the parents should be charged with tampering with evidence, but that would be too hard to do since Ellie failed to secure the scene. Well, which examples would you give about that? Absolutely, they messed up the whole investigation. That is why I believe those from the area saying some of the parents of the ones involved did not investigate like they should have, and the golf club should have been found and taken for evidence, as well as the guns the aunt of one of the boys took home with her and should have been being charged with tampering. I pray the new investigator is a great one and gets everyone. The new investigator? Who's the new investigator? What? When did that come around? What, not Kathy Bingham? Is someone else taken over? Does anyone know? Denise, evidence wasn't removed from the scene. I mean, if that is the case, then Kaden Pressey should also be in trouble for removing the cooler with alcohol in it and removing himself and the other 3 witnesses from the place. The lady was not a relative to the boys. The golf clubs were not taken from the house in Terrell. Not a golf club, a gun, or anything else was manually hit on Noah's head, according to the autopsy. She was not trying to protect any of them. There are a lot of details that only a few know. But Kaden Pressey was trying to protect party goers when it came to the alcohol, trying to hide that and move it on. And Kaden said it in his own words. He didn't want anyone getting in trouble. I mean, it's a good, kind thing to do, but technically it's kind of like cleaning up and hiding some of the truth in terms of the social hosting thing. You know, as much as the general public like to push the social hosting and the justice factor there, same people that look up and praise Kaden Pressey, well, Kaden Pressey was the one that was attempting to indirectly cover up the social hosting laws and all of that, trying to hide alcohol, cover that up to some extent. Kaden was doing it because he's friends and he cares about people around him, which is a good thing. But the general public's outlook that praise Kaden but also push for the social hosting, there's a big contradiction there. And I don't think people seem to acknowledge it enough. What else do we have? 20 people? You should have been a detective. Oh, here comes Tim. How could Paul Poucher have seen all of Noah's items in the window if they were in a pond? He said he saw them after all this. I think 20 people conspired to cover up a teenager's death. These people are insane. I'm not saying Paul didn't see them. He said he went there and I have zero reason to not believe him. Noah was his baby cousin whom he loves a lot. Are all the items still at the house? So many stories way after the fact regarding the personal effects of Noah Presgrove should have been given to the family. Yes, but they can't name anybody. Well, they don't need to. They don't need to name everybody. We know who they're all accusing. Surprise, surprise, somebody's going to be eating a lot of crow. Okay. I don't think they think 20 teenagers. I think they're meaning 20 in total. And last but not least, Tim Daniel, people don't think they just throw out accusations and the first thing that comes to their wild imagination is pretty sickening. What's worse is the number, and I mean the numerous number of people that are put in danger because of their loose lips and ugly accusations. So things must have got a bit tense because my hair's all over the place and a complete mess. But, you know, in terms of what was said, kind of interesting, the reactions and responses. But look, this is the thing. Yes, we're going to do a map analysis in just a second because of the mystery of the white van, because that seems to have been forgotten about. Maybe it's in the small print, the small text. A lot of people are focusing in on what Michael should have done, shouldn't have done originally, and then who Tim should have shared it with and who he shouldn't have, and who are those people responsible, and which is a mystery person. And then Chris was originally annoyed, and it's a bit of a mess, and people being put in harm's way, in danger, and any misinterpretations or people in the background that may see the vehicle and then target Chris can be a major disaster. To some extent, damage is already done. At the end of the day, I said there's a process, there's a method behind it as to how you go about it. If you receive it and you want to share it or you want to post it, you reach back out to the original person and say, hey, could I do it? You don't do it. Sometimes you may not do it on behalf of the original. You reach out to the first person, but it depends if you're in contact with them, first of all. And it depends if you're in good terms with them in the first place, because if they're a bit of a knobhead, well, then they're probably not going to listen to you anyway. And if you need to defend yourself or defend someone, sometimes you might have to look past it, depending on the situation and depending on the consequences. If the consequences aren't that high or that bad, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to some extent, right? But look, this is the thing. In terms of how you handle it, in terms of the methods and the strategies, it can be under control, but people may not always think about it at the time. But I think that mystery white van is kind of important. Some people may hold on to some aspects in the case until evidence comes about, and that's understandable. And you can't just, if you know it yourself or you are the reason behind it, you can't expect the general public to just nod their heads with your words if they've not seen it with their own eyes as a hard evidence. It's only like when I've been shown stuff which wasn't, you know, possible to share with the general public at some point, right? But I did a video about it, summarizing it, right? I worked around it so you could hear and listen with what I've seen, what I've witnessed. And yeah, I could think in my own mind, I would hope to think that people would be able to trust what I say based on what I've witnessed, and that would be enough. But I wouldn't take it as offence if people said, we don't believe you, we don't trust you, Warlight Ref. Why? Well, because they need and they want to see it with their own eyes. They can't just be seeing it through my eyes. I get that. There's only so much that you can do. There's only so much that you can control. But whilst being emotionally disconnected from cases, I can look wider and further and more open. But if you wanted to do it on a bit of a case study example, in terms of not giving up or forgetting, because when I make my references, I've got a very good memory, and a very good memory with humans, and a very good long shopping list of what humans do to me, both good and normally bad. So if people were to try and say something to me or have a go, I'll whip out my A3 sheet of paper and I will list every bullet point of what a human has done wrong to me, because I keep tracks and keep tabs very closely. But don't you worry, I do the same to myself. And, you know, some people could be saying, yeah, right, stop lying, stop joking. I'll demonstrate it right now as a form of live abstract art. And don't worry, this is all under control. Just give me a second, okay? We will do the mystery in just a second, but this is also just as important if it's available. And of course it is. It's come to observations, it's come to analysis, right? Picking up on what's going on, what's wrong, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be fixed. I could be in the presence of people or someone that might be good, that might be bad, that might act good, whatever, but I see through it at times, or I do see the receiving end, the darkness of some people, the mistakes made, the lack of care, the lack of consideration, the lack of thought, and how they sell themselves does not match with their actions or their changes because there's lack of change. Isn't that a bit too critical? And then what about the analysis of other people? Isn't that a bit too critical? When you look back at how hard I can be on myself, well, then it balances it all out. And as critical as I can be on cases and in general in a balanced way, Brenda's seen it firsthand, as in how certain times positives can be mentioned. Because I know Brenda said, you give me a lot of credit, I appreciate, but I don't deserve, or it doesn't need to be said, or something like that. I understand. But it's like, if you're going to go one way, you go the other way too for that balance, right? Or unless that's just what I do. And in terms of being hard on myself, or in terms of, if other people are going to get told off like a naughty individual, if I did that myself, I'd be consciously aware, or try to, and then I would do it in a demonstration. I'll do it a demonstration way right now. And don't worry, it's going to be done very, very quickly, because I know how humans get very triggered when it comes to certain aspects, right? You see that? I can't sound because of, right? Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. That was a bit harder than normal. That's going to leave red marks on my back, okay? But sometimes through pain, there is growth, and through growth, there is progression in many different formats. But that's what I mean. I will not let go. I will remember. And even if that applies to myself, okay, for that balance aspect. Is it hurting right now? Yes, but it doesn't matter. It's all under control. But it's where it comes with limitation that, whereas you can acknowledge things in a case or people, it's best to remain emotionally disconnected, because if you are connected, it can blind your vision, or it can slow down things. But if I was in a situation, do I give up on someone when the majority of the human race could at times in certain circumstances? The fact that I see through the obstructions, I see through the darkness, I see through all of the damage with time, because I know what's deep down within a person, right? The depth of an abyss in which others have a depth of a basement, and that is why I will have more stamina than what you could ever possibly imagine. Ooh, physical stamina. You're a big boy. No, I'm talking about in a deeper way, and not physically, but psychologically. Okay? It goes above, it goes beyond, and on a very, very tiny scale, it was applied to certain humans in the case, but because I was emotionally disconnected, it did not escalate. When I tried to help Justin Roy, when I tried to give perspective, when I tried to help one change to avoid more problems down the line, it was rejected and thrown back. They became a lost cause along with other people, and then it was done and dusted, cleansed, humans dead to me in that sense, right? But when a human isn't dead to me, and if I am somewhat connected to someone and that stamina is there, one can go deeper than you could possibly imagine, because I don't like the idea, not that I do it often, because I rarely do, but I do not like the idea of giving up on someone, right? Does that apply the same with a case? That's what the interesting combination is, not wanting to give up on a case, but remaining disconnected throughout. There's a balancing act there. But it can always be hard and difficult at times to remain focused, to remain helpful, but to not be too biased if it's someone that you care about. And that is why when it comes to true crime cases, other people out there that may be connected with other people on behalf of other people and so on, that when there's resistance or attacks, some dark force will go after someone that you care or love about to get to you as a bargaining chip. So if you get involved in true crime or communities, be careful who else you rope in with you or associate with, so you don't drag other people down, right? Other people can think for themselves, of course, but I like to be constantly aware too if that ever was the case, right? With that being said, let's now focus in on the white, mysterious, abandoned van, because I think it does speak volume. It's a short but sweet map analysis here based on what that woman, the wife, said of the husband. A husband, unknown named individual, was driving down the highway, passing by where Noah's body was to be found specifically, which is interesting. There was abandoned white van spotted there and onwards, even with what Chris had said. So I'm guessing when Chris was driving down there himself on that day earlier, he saw it too. Whose van was it? Why was it there of all places? And where did it come from? Did the person just leave it there and then walk away? Did the van break down so the person had to be picked up by somebody else? That could simply be the case, but it's been very quiet, and it's not been, for me, it's never been mentioned before. Just the fact that I've not seen any witnesses mention about a vehicle like a white van present is what is unusual to me, okay? But we're going to break it down bit by bit. So, highway roughly around here, 30 feet away, not that far from where Noah's body was to be found. At 1 a.m. is when it was spotted by that husband. At whatever time it was, Chris Payette saw it too from the looks of it. A white van. 1 a.m. What was Noah Presgrove doing at 1 a.m? Well, roughly speaking, 5 minutes past 1 a.m, at 1:05, Noah Presgrove was outside of the party house under the patio overhanging roof, as which Kaden Pressey was recording from his point of view of Brylan Sweat slapping Noah Presgrove, Noah asking for it, and Isaac Rojas in the background talking with Avery, supposedly wanting to shoot his gun, and Avery saying, no, you can't be doing that. So roughly 1 a.m. onwards, Noah Presgrove was alive and fine. And then 45 minutes later, Noah supposedly in the bathroom with Jack Newton smiling. And then after that point, as for documented recordings and photos publicly, unknown of, but you had the side-by-side rollover supposedly, which was documented, but we never saw, but Kaden Pressey did to some extent. The shower situation, the teabagging, people naked as well, being fed by Carter, and then the bedroom debacle, and then at some point Avery and Jack mentioned in the wrongful death lawsuit having a verbal fight with Noah Presgrove, supposedly in that order, or at least how you could interpret it. But what I do find interesting how this mystery, well, not mystery, but this husband of someone's was driving down the highway and they were going fishing. And it just so happens that Jack Newton was doing the same thing on the same day, but a bit later on. 5:53 onwards, getting ready, prepping for the fishing trip. And for Jack, the fishing trip consisted of doing it at Waurika Lake. You see over this way, Waurika. Where's the lake itself? Well, I'm just looking at it very quickly. Not Waurika, Bugs. I think it was Waurika. What am I on about? Anyway, there we go. I wonder where the bloody Waurika Lake was. It's that big and I couldn't even see it. It's bigger than my head and I couldn't even find it. Bloody hell. Waurika Lake, okay? The fishing trip, what was supposed to happen. So my question is, if Jack was going fishing on that day and was going here, was that husband, that wife doing the same thing, the same location, or what? Could it mean heading the same direction on the same lane as well, like what Jack did? Not a major thing, but it's just understanding, interesting how different people going fishing on the same day and passing by the same area and close by. Coincidence, maybe, that might be all. Okay? And that the LE saw it too. If the LE saw it, and you've got Tim Daniel saying 4 vehicles have been thoroughly checked by police, does that include the mysterious white van? To some extent. Because if you've literally got a vehicle on scene near to where Noah's body was to later be found, you could easily pair both things together. Even if there's no sign of a hit or run, there's no sign of that. But just to check the vehicle out, why would a vehicle be near to Noah's body? If you were looking at it for the very first time, you could think, wait, was Noah Presgrove driving that white van, then parked up, then got out, then collapsed or something? What the hell's going on? But what I would like to ultimately know is, why the hell has it not been mentioned before so publicly? Why the hell has there been such a heavy focus on 4:48 in the morning where a woman, even though it's not from her own mouth, but a friend online that said going to the casino to work there, and other people have said no, it was done incorrectly. She was leaving the casino and heading north, either way down the highway at 4:48 in the morning. By that time, is Noah Presgrove already dead on the highway? You could suggest so, because at 3:30 Noah walked away. Time of death unknown, but the estimate was, from Jack's words, 4 in the morning. So 4:48, long gone by then. But as to where Noah's body was truly at, if it was all at the highway, it should be at the highway. And that woman driving down it should have seen Noah's body, but didn't pay attention or didn't think or pick up on it. You could say so. But what I'm interested in, with 4:48, woman driving, sees a side-by-side pull out of nowhere, if you remember. Pulling out of nowhere. Okay, but that's a side-by-side. That's a different vehicle. So how many bloody vehicles were out there? You've got a van parked up abandoned, Noah's body as well, woman driving down at 4:48, side-by-side decides to pull out of the side of the road out of nowhere, bright beamed lights, and then speeds off. So what's going on? What's happening? Considering there was no traffic reports at the mini-mart cameras, maybe that's true to some extent because there's turn-off points further on north, but still, there seems like quite a bit of traffic over the course of time. Now, the guy that saw the white van at 1 in the morning may not be that significant. And also, for Chris as well, not that significant because of the timing of it was earlier. But it's the people afterwards that may have seen it, right? So Kaden Pressey, Tyler Hardy, Tyler Hudman. Did any of them see an abandoned white vehicle parked up besides Noah? And that was before police got there, and Chris said, well, this is weird. This is weird as fuck. You know what? Let's go on. I know I've got the marker on the railroad tracks. That was just inaccurate placement. Don't take it too deep. Along the lines of down here, okay? Noah's body somewhere down here on the ground, in line with the white line. And you got a bloody white van not far from, 30 feet away, just a little bit down there, not far at all. but it did mention it was parked. If it's parked, it would have to be off the road, or people would be crashing into it left, right, and centre. So I'm assuming parked as in on the side of the road, just behind or just in front of Noah's body. So why is it when Kaden Pressey, in his timeline of 5:15, but when he got to the highway at 5:21, he said there was a semi-truck and a service truck with a crane or so. And that was it. And Jack's vehicle and Kaden's. So you had, 4 vehicles in total. And Kaden couldn't see a white abandoned van. Is it possible, and I'm not too confident, is it possible that Kaden at 5:15, based on his timeline, what he saw as a white service truck was a white van, maybe, and not a service truck? It depends how people describe it. When people say a van, do they literally mean a van? I'm just trying to think of dodgy slang and terms which people from the US may use. Some words may mean something else, but when I think of a van, I don't think of a service truck whatsoever. When I think of a white van, I think of what I see in the UK. Maybe it differs to the US, I don't know. Not literally, but what is it? An UPS van, a DPD van, that type of van. Maybe not as tall, maybe a bit more cube and blocky. But you get what I'm saying? That's different to a service truck, different to a semi-truck, and different to the likes of a Ford F-150 pickup truck. The shapes are very unique to one another. So if you've got a white van abandoned down the highway, and Chris Payette says that the LE saw it as well, well, the LE were there at 6 in the morning onwards, 6:15, 6:18 a.m., meaning that white van was there from 1 in the morning all the way till the police got there, and also in between when Tyler Hardy and Tyler Hudman passed by and called in at their respective times. And yet, I don't know if it was both, but at least Tyler Hardy, I believe, may have made the reference to something was in the middle of the road, a body or something on the side, no one else present. Tyler Hardy worded it that we were the first ones on scene, at least in their opinion at the time when dealing with the Kaden Pressey conflict. And it could well be true that Tyler Hardy and Hudman were the first on scene to see it and report it, right? However, they didn't think to mention anything about a white, bloody, abandoned van. They could have said, yeah, we were the first ones there, but at first we thought that maybe we weren't first on scene because we saw an abandoned white van. But to us, we just saw a white van at first, thinking that maybe somebody was in it. Maybe Noah Presgrove was driving the white van and then parked up or something, or had an accident, had an issue, and then collapsed to the ground. No mention or consideration of that. I think it's really prominent and important, especially in this case when it's still treated as a vehicular-based death and you've literally got a vehicle near to Noah's body, or at least that's how I'm interpreting it from what's been mentioned in the comments. The fact that Chris Payette acknowledges it as well is important, because someone randomly online saying, oh, their husband was driving down and noticed a white van parked up. That could be a load of rubbish, could be a load of bollocks, but because Chris Payette was down there himself and he acknowledges it, there's more truth to it. And if there's more truth to it, then why didn't anybody else acknowledge it who was passing through the area? Or at least to what I can remember and what I've seen, I don't remember Tyler Hardy or Tyler Hudman ever acknowledging a white van present at the scene near to Noah's body. I never remember Kaden Pressey acknowledging it either. I don't think I remember Jack Newton highlighting it too. So what the hell has gone on? Have we got a white van with an invisibility cloak? Stole it from Harry Potter? What's going on? A white van. What's it doing there? It broke down. A person had to ring for a ride home, a taxi, or a family member, a friend, a loved one to pick them up so then they could go back home and then leave the white van behind. Maybe. Now, the timing of when the white van broke down or was abandoned probably, very likely, isn't linked to Noah's death, right? But if you're seeing it for the first time without the context and you don't know when it was there or when it arrived, you could link one with the other. Maybe with the context with what you know afterwards, you can just rule it out and say it doesn't link to Noah. There's no damage to the vehicle. There's no evidence or DNA upon it linking to Noah. So it's just pretty much in the same place, but was there before Noah was. Maybe. But I'm just curious as to why no one else, especially Tyler, Hardy and Hudman, ever acknowledged it. It's like they never saw it there, the white van. But surely they would have. And considering the vehicle count by maybe Kaden Pressey, to some extent Jack Newton, they didn't mention it too from what I can remember. So why is it neglected? Oh, because it's just not that important. Yeah, but there's many other details in this case which may not be that important, but people still acknowledge it. So why didn't they acknowledge the white van? Stands out like a sore thumb to me. No follow-up on it, though, as to whether it linked or not to Noah's case. Who knows what goes on there? What was in the back of the van? Any material? Any blood? Anything whatsoever? Was that white van used in any means or any format? Well, you can argue and say no, because 1 a.m, that husband saw it there anyway, and Noah was alive. Is it possible, though, that that white van was left there and then used afterwards to do with Noah and then returned back to the highway? No, because that sounds premeditated and it's in plan and in place, and that's probably unlikely based on the way the case has gone. But when you get these mysterious vehicles showing up or being abandoned, they do stand out. And if it's literally near to where the body was to be found later, then you can't blame to link one with the other in some way. And even if it wasn't just that, what about the obstruction, right? If you got a white van at some spot, isn't it going to blur the vision for some people driving one way? You know, let's say if Noah's body was right there and the van was behind there, it means anyone on the east side lane heading north would not be able to see Noah's body because it's blurred, blanked by the bloody big backside of the white van, right? If you're heading north and the van's on that side, parked up, let's just say, behind Noah, you're coming up north, you're not going to see Noah's body until you're literally parallel to it, adjacent. You're already looking ahead by then. If the white van was in front of Noah, for example, there, it means if you're coming down south to go to Terrell that way, you're not going to see where Noah's body is because of the distance from the body to the white van. But because Tyler Hardy and Tyler Hudman saw the body or saw something fairly clearly, then likely the white van would have been parked further back behind Noah, if that makes sense, meaning those that are coming north would not be able to see it for the first time round. And if that links to what that woman was doing, leaving the casino, not going to the casino, but heading north, that's probably why at 4:48 she did not see Noah's body, because that white van was blocking the vision for her to see the body. But why was it not acknowledged by other people then about a white van? It's just as simple as that. If you see something, you would report on it, whether you deem it as significant or not. The fact that a stranger saw it at 1 a.m. and then decided to report it into police later after hearing about the death of Noah, that was the right, responsible thing to do. Just like what Chris Payette did too in his own right. So there are outsiders and once strangers out there that did the right thing and were proactive. And yeah, Tyler Hardy and Tyler Hudman were proactive in making the call in the first place, which was good of them. But no mention of a white van. Kaden Pressey, no mention of a white van specifically worded that way. Let me make that clear. So what the hell is going on? And was there ever an update on the van? Was it taken away? Well, obviously, because it's no longer there, but who by? And was it returned back to the rightful owner? Who knows? Did it belong or did it come from the party house? Did it come from the dove hunt? Who knows? Depending on how you interpret Chris's comment about it being there for some time or for some days, does that mean some days leading up to the build-up to the death of Noah or beyond afterwards? Because if it's days before and it's been left there, it's probably not going to link to Noah's death whatsoever. But as in where it came from, what it was doing, was it a dove hunt linked there? Was it the party house? Who knows? It's just more so the attitude from the key witnesses that were there or passing by, how they didn't acknowledge it. How do you not see it? You know, You're more likely to see a white van parked up on the side than you are to see a pair of shorts in the middle of the road when driving in the dark and focusing on what's ahead, if that makes sense. The bigger the object is, the more it's going to stand out. If people don't acknowledge it, then was it there to begin with? Well, Chris acknowledges why it was, so why can't other people? I want to know your thoughts about that. So the most important part, I would argue and say, may have been shorter compared to what we first looked at initially within this video format and stuff, but for good reason, because sometimes the most important stuff doesn't have to be the longest. There's only so much you can talk about then. That's the obvious thing. If it was mentioned by Chris that there was a white abandoned van, but the other person never said the time as when they saw it, as in 1 a.m, you could be a bit more lenient and say, oh, well, if we don't know the time of when it was first seen, it could have been there later and closer to the time of Noah's death. But because it's seen earlier, before Noah's death, then maybe it doesn't have any link whatsoever. But does it act as a blockade? Does it act as impacting vision of what you can and can't see down the road, depending which way you're coming from, if the body's just in front or behind the van? That's what I acknowledge, and who sees what and who doesn't acknowledge it, which is a bit unusual. And Ed has mentioned, was there a mention by George Choden that Chris did pass a vehicle or a van? And that's what was being talked about then, which now makes more sense now. Or was it more of a truck driver, which is something completely different? Because I don't know if someone was trying to put across as in, did Chris see Tyler, Hardy or Hudman? But I said, that's just roughly what I can remember. It's not quite clear or that perfect. But nevertheless, it's just a very unusual situation. As in who it belonged to, that van, don't know. A party goer, a dove hunt guest, a stranger passing on by. Did Noah Presgrove ever interact with that white van driver? Did that white van driver, before 1 a.m, call in at the party house? 1 a.m, as in on the Monday, right? What happened before 1 a.m? Where was that driver coming from? What were they doing, right? Parking up if it broke down and abandoned because there's not much you can do with it in the moment. I do get that and it's understandable, but that's just a theory because we don't know the actual facts behind it. Reported into police, the right thing done, but any follow-up? No. But in other areas in the case, any follow-up? Not publicly. So it might have been noted, who knows, in the documents in the future, it might even officially mention it, but by key witnesses, they didn't. So what are you supposed to base that off then? Unusual. So hopefully you found the video somewhat interesting. If you want to hit the thumbs up, share the video, that would be appreciated. My name's Wallet Ref. I'll see you next time whenever that is. Goodbye for now.